Hey, what's up guys, it's Renaldo here. So this video is going to focus on why the national dialogue was never ever going to work and why so many people were right in saying that this is just an election ploy for the ANC to use taxpayers' money to campaign for themselves in the upcoming elections. Because we all know this talk shop is just going to be about how amazing the ANC is, how terrible apartheid was, and why there's no explanation as to why we are in the mess we are in currently. Now, this past weekend, the National Convention of the National Dialogue kicked off. Now, don't worry if you're confused by this. The National Convention, in essence, is to set the parameters of what is going to be discussed at the National Dialogue. Now, if you've seen the videos on social media, you could see a lot of people shouting over each other, a lot of people walking out, a lot of people grabbing the mics, not allowing other people to talk, which is exactly what is actually happening in South Africa right now. So in actual fact, it is a true reflection of what is transpiring in South Africa at the moment. However, when Cyril Ramaphosa went to go and address the people at this national convention, that is where I think even the doubters confirmed that this national dialogue is not going to serve what it is supposed to serve. And let me show you why I say this.
We also need to ask ourselves, why do so many people live in abject poverty and so few live lives of opulence?
Well, let's think about this. The ANC has been in government for the last 30 years and then one extra year under an ANC-led GNU. Now, please note that apartheid lasted 42 years. We are currently in 31 years into democracy. And even right now, in 2025, there are more people unemployed now in 2025 than during the peak of apartheid. There are also far more people being killed every single day than at the height of apartheid. So the question that you pose is a question that you, as Cyril Ramaphosa, and you as the ANC, as well as you as the government, need to answer. That is not a question for the public. That is a question for you in how you have failed over the last 31 years and with the advent of modern technology. Because let's be real, 42 years under apartheid during those years versus 31 years with modern technology, the internet, everything at our disposal, it is quite clear that the modern era, we could have achieved so much more than during the years of apartheid being 42 years. So the failure in South Africa in 2025 is squarely on the ANC's shoulders and definitely on your shoulders for failing us as during your term as the president. But you also ask a very important question. You ask, how can some people live in opulence while the majority live in abject poverty? Well, let's have a look quick. How much are you worth, Cyril Ramaphosa? Let's have a look here. Ramaphosa's net worth was estimated at over 6.4 billion rand as of 2018. So that was in 2018, which is 7 years ago, which means that should be probably 7 or 8 billion right now. And then also, look at this beautiful house right on the foot of Signal Hill in Cape Town. This belongs to Cyril Ramaphosa. This is one of his houses. Look at that beautiful view. Robben Island in the distance over there. So please explain to us why this is the case. We would love to hear from you because ultimately you will need to give us the answers because you have been in control of this country for the last 31 years.
Why, after decades of democracy, are the prospects of a white child so much better than those of a black child?
You see, there we go. So here comes the racism. Here comes blaming apartheid for everything. And of course, the ANC should be able to answer this because they are the ones that has been in charge of this country for 31 years.
We need to ask ourselves that.
Well, haven't you asked yourself that for the last 31 years?
We also need to ask ourselves, why do women get paid less than men for the same work?
Well, let's think about this. If you actually applied the labor laws in this country correctly and you wrote the legislation, then that wouldn't be a problem. So once again, why haven't you done that, ANC government, since 1994?
That's what we need to ask ourselves. Now, we also must go deeper and ask ourselves why, when we have a Bill of Rights in our Constitution, are the LGBTQI plus people still discriminated against?
How? I would like to know this. How exactly is the LGBTQI plus community being discriminated against in 2025? Can anybody please indicate to me what I can do as a straight white male that a person from the LGBTQI plus community can't do? Because this is just talk. This is just hitting the key issues that, your speech writer wrote for you so that you can seem that you actually care.
Why are they still stigmatized and harassed?
Oh, you mean like white people? In South Africa today, there's probably 1 to 5% of the people that was actually in charge during apartheid that are still old enough to have some influence in this country. But yet you want to act like the overwhelming majority of white people in this country are direct beneficiaries from apartheid, when in actual fact they are not. So why don't you ask the question, how come it is still acceptable in 2025 to sing songs about killing people purely based on the color of their skin? Why don't you ask that?
Why do clinics run out of medicine?
Because of you. You steal all the money as the ANC government. That is why when people go to a provincial hospital, they are more than likely to die in that hospital than if they were at a private hospital, because of your failure to use taxpayers' money to make sure that these hospitals are kept in a situation where you are able to save lives rather than kill people through infections because there's urine and shit and other things in that hospital that shouldn't be there because it hasn't been cleaned, because there's not enough employees there, there's not electricity there, and the list goes on and on. All of these questions has clearly got to do with the ANC and questions that the ANC need to answer.
Are questions that we must ask ourselves. And why do taps run dry?
Because the infrastructure is collapsing because you have not spent enough money in maintaining the infrastructure. That's why.
These are some of the questions.
It's very easy to answer these. You could have just emailed it to me. I could have answered it via email. We could have saved all of this money right here.
That we must be willing to ask and which we must be prepared to find answers for.
So you don't have the answers already? You don't know all of the answers to those questions you just posed?
But more than that, my fellow South Africans, these are the challenges that we must be ready to do something about. As individuals, as organizations, as communities, as parents, as elected representatives, and as public officials.
And that is why the national dialogue is an absolute waste of time and money. 700 million rand that is going to be wasted on answers that we already have to the questions that Cyril Ramaphosa just asked. The ANC, that is who's to blame. Corruption, maladministration, incompetence. There's your answers. You don't have to spend 700 million rand to get the answers to that. It's because of you and your political organization that we are in the mess that we are in. And to ask the broader question of poverty and wealth, black and white, here is a question that nobody actually has an answer to, or at least have not given me an answer to. And that question is, where does the legacy of apartheid end and the failure by the ANC government begin? Because if we can get the answer to that question, then we'll have the answer to every question that Cyril Ramaphosa has asked there. The ANC is using this national dialogue to bus in people, give them t-shirts, give them food, sit there, and then start praising the ANC. And start blaming once again apartheid, colonialism, arme ou Jan van Riebeeck, because that is what the ANC wants to do. The ANC, as they're batting smart this time around, instead of going, we're going to ask our funders for money so that we can have an election campaign, they've decided to use taxpayers' money to the tune of 700 million rand, where they are going to use this to campaign to people that are already frustrated, and they're going to convince them that the ANC is the answer. And that is why so many people are against this national dialogue. And as you could see from the very first national convention, where Cyril spoke and people started swearing at one another, this is just going to be a failure, because people don't want to talk anymore. They want action. All the ANC has done for the last 31 years is talk with little action. The answer is easy. We want action, less talking. We want service delivery, less stealing. We want competence, not incompetence. There we go. Saved you 700 million rand. It truly is as simple as that. So if you are invited to attend the national dialogue, do the right thing and don't attend it, purely because this is just going to be an ANC praise and worship. That is all it's going to be. What an absolute waste of time, and what an absolute waste of money. But once again, the taxpayers are left with the bill. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to smash that like button. Please be sure to subscribe. Please be sure to share this video far and wide. And if you enjoy my content, then please consider becoming a member. You can do so by clicking the join button below. And that's all I got to say. Till later. Cheers and peace out.
You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre.